Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashoda Nandana Ira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Madhava, Radhe. Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitayena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This is as far as we... Okay. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, I apologize that you have to listen to me 2 days in a row. Somehow or other, that's what has happened. We're reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 6, text 31 to 44, which will conclude the chapter. This is on the killing of Putana. So, no need to clap. I didn't do anything here. Okay, let us begin.
Meanwhile, all the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, returned from Mathura, and when they saw on the way the gigantic body of Putana lying there, they were struck with great wonder.
Try to read loudly, if possible.
Nanda Maharaj and the other Gopas exclaimed, "My dear friends, you must know that
Anakadundubi.
Anakadundabi, Vasudev, has become a great saint or a master of mystic power. Otherwise, how could he have foreseen this calamity and predicted it to us?"
The inhabitants of Vraja cut the gigantic body of Putna into pieces with the help of axes. Then they threw the pieces far away, covered them with wood, and burned them to ashes.
Because of Krishna's having sucked the breast of the Rakshasi Putna, when Krishna killed her, she was immediately freed of all material contamination. Her sinful reactions automatically vanished, and therefore when her gigantic body was being burnt, the smoke emanating from her body was fragrant like a guru incense.
Putna was always hankering for the blood of human children, and with that desire she came to kill Krishna. But because she offered her best to the Lord, she attained the greatest achievement. When then is to be said of those who had natural devotion and affection for Krishna as mothers and who offered him their best to suck or offered something very dear, as a mother offers something to a child.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always situated within the core of the heart of the pure devotee, and he is always offered prayers by such worshipable personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, because Krishna embraced Putana's body with great pleasure and sucked her breast. Although she was a great witch, she attained the position of a mother in the transcendental world, and thus achieved the highest perfection. What then is to be said of the cows whose nipples Krishna sucked with great pleasure, and who offered their milk very jubilantly with perfection exactly like that of a mother?
Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the bestower of many benedictions, including liberation, kaivalya, or oneness with the Brahman effulgence. For that personality of Godhead, the gopis always felt maternal love, and Krishna sucked their breasts with full satisfaction. Therefore, because of their relationship as mother and son, although the gopis were engaged in various family activities, one should never think that they return to this material world after leaving their bodies.
Upon smelling the fragrance of the smoke emanating from Putna's burning body, many inhabitants of Rajabhumi in distant places were astonished. Where is this fragrance coming from? They asked. Thus they went to the spot where Putna's body was being burnt.
Text 42. When the inhabitants of Raj, who had come from distant places, heard the whole story of how Putna had come and then been killed by Krishna, they were certainly astonished, and they offered their blessings to the child for his wonderful deeds of killing Putna. Nand Maharaj, of course, was very much obliged to Vasudev, who had foreseen the incident, and simply thanked him, thinking how wonderful Vasudev was.
O Maharaj Parikshit, best of the Kurus, Nanda Maharaja was very liberal and simple. He immediately took his son Krishna on his lap as if Krishna had returned from death, and by formally smelling his son's head, Nanda Maharaja undoubtedly enjoyed transcendental bliss.
Any person who hears with faith and devotion about how Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Putana, and who thus invest in his hearings in such childhood pastimes of Krishna, certainly attains attachments for Govinda, the Supreme Original Person.
Ribo! So we're focusing on text 40. 39 and 40? Will we do the Sanskrit for both?
Yes.
Okay. Payang siya samapibat putra snehas snutanyalam Bhagavan Devaki putra Kaivalyadyakila pradaha Tasam aviratam Krishne Sangsaro jnana sambhavaha. Someone else. Ayang siya samapibat putra sneha snutanyalam Bhagavan Devaki putra Kaivalyadakila pradaha Tasam Krishne Kurvati nam sutekshanam Na punah kalpate rajan Samsaro jnana sambhavaha Payang siya samapibat Putra sneha snutanyalam Bhagavan Devaki putra Kaivalyad Kaivalyadhyakila pradaha Tasam aviratam Krishne kurvati nam sutekshanam punah kalpate rajam sangsaro jnana sambhavaha. Word for word. Payangsi, milk, coming from the body. Yasam, from all of whom, of all of whom, sorry. Of all of whom. Apibat, Lord Krishna drank. Putra sneha snutani, that milk coming from the bodies of the gopis, not artificially, but because of maternal affection. Alam, sufficiently. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devaki Putraha, who appeared as the son of Devaki. Kaivalya Adi, like liberation, or merging into the Brahman effulgence. Akila Pradaha, the bestower of all similar blessings. Tasam, of all of them, of all the gopis. Aviratam, constantly. Krishna, unto Lord Krishna. Kurvati nam, making. Sutta ikshanam, as a mother looks upon her child. Na, never. Punaha, again. Kalpate, can be imagined. Rajan, O King Parikshit. Sangsaraha, the material bondage of birth and death. Ajnana sambhavaha, which is to be accepted by foolish persons ignorantly trying to become happy. Translation: the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the bestower of many benedictions, including liberation or kaivalya, or oneness with the Brahman effulgence. For that personality of Godhead, the gopis always felt maternal love, and Krishna sucked to their breasts with full satisfaction. Therefore, because of their relationship as mother and son, although the gopis were engaged in various family activities, one should never think that they returned to this material world after leaving their bodies. Purport. The advantage of Krishna consciousness is described herein. Krishna consciousness gradually develops on the transcendental platform. One may think of Krishna as the Supreme Personality. One may think of Krishna as the Supreme Master. One may think of Krishna as the Supreme Friend. One may think of Krishna as the Supreme Son. Or one may think of Krishna as the Supreme Conjugal Lover. If one is connected with Krishna in any of these transcendental relationships, the course of one's material life is understood to have already ended. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti. For such devotees, going back home, back to Godhead, is guaranteed. Na punah kalpate rajan sangsaro jnana sambhavaha. This verse also guarantees that devotees who constantly think of Krishna in a particular relationship will never return to this material world. In this material world of samsara, there are the same relationships. One thinks, here is my son, here is my wife, here is my lover, or here is my friend. But these relationships are temporary illusions. Ajnana sambhavaha. Such a consciousness awakens in ignorance. But when the same relationships awaken in Krishna consciousness, one's spiritual life is revived, and one is guaranteed to return home back to Godhead. Even though the gopis, who were friends of Rohini and Mother Yashoda, and who allowed their breasts to be sucked by Krishna, were not directly Krishna's mothers, they all had the same chance as Rohini and Yashoda to go back to Godhead and act as Krishna's mothers-in-law, servants, and so on. The word samsara refers to attachment for one's body, home, husband or wife, and children. But although the gopis and all the other inhabitants of Vrindavan had the same affection and attachment for husband and home, Their central affection was for Krishna in some transcendental relationship, and therefore they were guaranteed to be promoted to Goloka Vrindavan in the next life, to live with Krishna eternally in spiritual happiness. The easiest way to attain spiritual elevation, to be liberated from this material world and to go back home, back to Godhead, is recommended by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Krishnera Sangsara Koro Chari Anachar. One should give up all sinful activities and remain in the family of Krishna. Then one's liberation is guaranteed. So, the conclusion of this pastime, this highlights a very interesting event that took place, that Putana, who is a demoness, who was sent by Kamsa to kill Krishna, and who had killed many other children. This is what Putanas do, as we saw in the previous, yesterday's class, that Putanas are always around the corner, ready to torment children and so forth. So she came with the intention of killing Krishna, and for that reason she disguised herself as a mother or a nurse, and because of that disguise, her celestial beauty, then Mother Rohini and Yashoda, they were unsuspecting. They thought that maybe such a celestial being has come just to bless our child. Or maybe it's Lakshmi herself who has come to, see Narayan. As Garga Muni had said previously, that Krishna is like Narayan. So because of that, they let their guard down, and then Putana was able to enter into the house and try to kill Krishna. But Krishna, he ultimately sucked out her entire life air through her breast. And the interesting point is that not only, he killed her and gave liberation, but he actually gave her prema, and he gave her a position in Goloka Vrindavan, which is very unusual. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I just want to go back to the previous verse again, or verses 37 to 38. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is always situated within the core of the heart of the pure devotee, and he is always offered prayers by such worshipable personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Because Krishna embraced Putana's body with great pleasure and sucked her breast, although she was a great witch, she attained the position of a mother in the transcendental world, and thus achieved the highest perfection. What then is to be said of the cows whose nipples Krishna sucked with great pleasure, and who offered their milk very jubilantly with affection, exactly like that of a mother? So the purport is not very long, but I'd like to read it. Srila Prabhupada writes, these verses explain how devotional service rendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether directly or indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly, becomes successful. Putana was neither a devotee nor a non-devotee. She was actually a demoniac witch instructed by Kamsa to kill Krishna. Nonetheless, in the beginning, she assumed the form of a very beautiful woman and approached Krishna exactly like an affectionate mother, so that Mother Yashoda and Rohini did not doubt her sincerity. The Lord took all this into consideration, and thus she was automatically promoted to a position like that of Mother Yashoda. As explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there are various roles one may play in such a position. Putana was immediately promoted to Vaikuntha Loka, which is also sometimes described as Svarga. The Svarga mentioned in this verse is not the material heavenly planet, but the transcendental world. In Vaikuntha Loka, Putana attained the position of a nurse, Dhatriyuchitam, as described by Uddhava. Putana was elevated to the position of a nurse and maidservant in Goloka Vrindavan to assist Mother Yashoda. This is certainly very exceptional mercy on the Lord's part. This is very unusual. So Srila Prabhupada here references a verse spoken by Uddhava in the 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, verse 23. And this is a very famous verse. So I'll just read it as well. Aho bakiyam stanakalakutam jighang sayapaya yadapya sadhvi lebhe gatim dhatriuchatam tatonyam kam vadayalum sharanam rajema. Alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast? Who can be more merciful than that person? That someone came to kill him, and just because of a small tinge of a motherly inclination that she offered her breast to him, he took that small gesture and left everything else. And then he elevated her to the most exalted position. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments on this verse and gives extra details in terms of her destination. He writes that even though Putana, who pretended to have sentiments of a mother, gave him poison to kill him, she attained a position in Goloka similar to the nurses of Krishna. Krishna has two real nurses named Ambika and Kalimba. Though Putana only had the dress of a devotee, she attained love suitable to a devotee. Though she hated the Lord, he made her a special example. Right? This is very unique. This incident shows Krishna's quality of giving liberation and bhakti to even those who hate him. So he attained a position as a servant of Ambika and Kalimba, the two nurses of Krishna. Ambika is a dear friend of Yashoda. She's the primary nurse. And so somehow or other, Putana attained a position in service of these nurses. It's very exceptional. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur here mentions this quality of Krishna. And this quality is listed by Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar of Devotion. Krishna has 64 qualities mentioned there. He has more than 64. Rupa Goswami mentions that these are only, this is not an exhaustive list. These are, prominent qualities we find in the pastimes of the Lord in the Shastras. So there are 64 such qualities. The first 50 of those qualities are shared by all living entities, that to the degree that we become pure, then the jivas can also develop these qualities, like beauty, intelligence, and so on. Very generic kind of qualities. Then there's a further 5 qualities that are shared by some of the demigods, like Brahma and Lord Shiva. And it's interesting to note on that point that Vishwanath mentions not just any like Shiva or Brahma, but actually like Sada Shiva, which is actually an avatar of the Lord. So they can attain up to 55 qualities. And then there's an additional 5 qualities, up to 60, which are shared by all the Vishnu Tattva expansions. All the Narayan forms have those additional qualities. And then there's 4 other qualities unique to Krishna. So those 5 qualities shared by all the Vishnu expansions, one of those qualities is called Hatari Gati Dayaka. And Rupa Goswami writes the definition, Mukti Data Hatarinam Hatari Gati Dayakaha. So Mukti Data, the giver of liberation, is known as, the giver of liberation to those he kills, is known as Hatari Gati Dayaka, the giver of the goal to those he kills. On this definition, Jiva Goswami comments, liberation mentioned in this definition is representative only and should be understood to include giving bhakti to persons such as Putana as well. So Krishna is the giver of liberation to those he kills. Jiva Goswami mentions that mukti here includes, it's a category that includes all the different gatis, all the different destinations, the highest being bhakti. This has been indicated with Ami Krishne Kilad Bhutaha. These qualities become more astounding in Krishna. So when Rupa Goswami lists those 5 qualities of Narayan, including this quality, at the end of the verses he mentions this, that these qualities are more astounding in Krishna. So they're present in Narayan and other Purusha avatars. But in Krishna, they reach an exceptional height of sweetness. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that Narayan generally gives swarga, actually, when he kills the demons. Generally, they attain the heavenly planets. So all their sins are eradicated, but they enjoy the results of their punya. And but Krishna, we find that he gives either liberation or bhakti. And in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita of Rupa Goswami, he uses this as an argument to demonstrate how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, above all of the other avatars as well. He narrows down that there are 3 avatars, 3 forms of the Lord, which are almost equal in supremacy. That is known as the Paravastha. There's Nrsimha, Ramachandra, and Krishna. We also would include, Lord Chaitanya in that category, but in these texts, he's not mentioned, explicitly. So Nrsimha, he is the personification of this virya, of power, ferocity. So he's like most ferocious form of the Lord, most power and strength and so on. Just above him is Ram, who has prominence of sweetness or madhurya. And then above Ram is Krishna, who is exceptional by dint of his beauty, unparalleled beauty. And that beauty, Bhagavan has those 6 qualities. He's all beautiful, most beautiful, completely renounced, all powerful, and so on. And that quality of beauty is actually his prominent quality, from which all the others are derived. So he's beautiful because he possesses all of these qualities. So in this way, Rupa Goswami establishes that Krishna is supreme because we see that Nrsimha, he killed Hiranyakashipu and Hiraksha, but they again took birth. They were not liberated after that. They took birth in the pastime of Ram as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. Ram slayed them. They took birth again in the pastimes of Krishna as Shishupal and Dantavakra. When Krishna killed them, they were liberated. So he uses this as an argument to demonstrate how Krishna is the highest, Swayam Bhagavan. So that's an interesting point. But here we see, not only can he give liberation, but in an exceptional case like this, he gives bhakti. There's a nice verse in the 10th canto, chapter 14, text 35. This is spoken by Brahma after the Brahma Vimohan Lila, where he realizes the position of Krishna and he's praying to become even a blade of grass in Vrindavan. He says, "My mind becomes bewildered just trying to think of what reward other than you could be found anywhere. You are the embodiment of all benedictions, which you bestow upon these residents of the cowherd community of Vrindavan. You have already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members in exchange for her disguising herself as a devotee. So what is left for you to give these devotees of Vrindavan, whose homes, wealth, friends, dear relations, bodies, children, and very lives and hearts are all dedicated only to you?" This is the verse, yeah. So Krishna, he's so generous, he gave himself to Putana, who was not even a devotee, who wanted to kill him just because she dressed like his devotee and pretended to offer him service. Just for that gesture, he gave the highest goal. So now, what's left to give the Brajvasis or other devotees who are sincerely trying to serve Krishna? Brahma's confused about this, like, what is left over? You've already given yourself. There's another nice verse in the 10th canto, chapter 48, text 26, spoken by Akrura. he offers this prayer when Krishna and Balaram come to visit him at his home in Mathura. He says, "What learned person would approach anyone but you for shelter, when you are the affectionate, grateful, and truthful well-wisher of your devotees? To those who worship you in sincere friendship, you reward everything they desire, even your own self, yet you never increase or diminish." So he's ready to give himself. If he's given himself to Putana, that now eternally she has the position of a nurse of the Lord. And those nurses, they're like wet nurses, that they help also in breastfeeding and looking after the children. So she's practically got an equal position with Mother Yashoda and the other gopis in Vatsalya Bhav. And for what? What did she do to deserve that? So it's nothing on Putana's part. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami mentions that there are two paths to perfection: sadhana siddha and kripa siddha. So most living entities will go through the path of sadhana bhakti. And on the strength of their advancement, step by step, from shraddha to sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, eventually they will attain bhava and then prema by the grace of the Lord and his devotees, but by following a disciplined sadhana. But the other category, kripa siddha, they just attain perfection by the causeless mercy of the Lord. And this is an example of that. Putana did no sadhana. In fact, she did the opposite. She wasn't trying to cultivate a relationship with Krishna. She was trying to murder him. Yeah. So this is when devotees who have love for the Lord, when they hear of this event, their hearts swell with affection, and they're completely amazed by this quality of Krishna. It's quite an exceptional quality. Liberation we can understand, that he gives liberation. He frees them from their sins, right? But to give prema, he doesn't give prema to just anyone. Usually he's very selective with who he gives prema. So, nonetheless, this is a quality of Krishna, and indeed of all of the Vishnu avatars, but when this quality is present in Krishna, we see that it reaches its height of sweetness, that he's so merciful. So we can have a little bit of hope that, if someone such as Putana can attain the mercy of the Lord, if we are sincerely engaged in Krishna consciousness, not with a desire to kill Krishna, but actually to love him, to serve him, to develop a relationship with him, there must be some place for us as well, right? This is what we can learn from this, and this is why the pure devotees, when they hear this pastime, their hearts blossom with hope, hope against hope. This verse also that we read, this 3:2:23, Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam, this appears in another special pastime. And that is the pastime where Gadadhar Pandit meets Pundarik Vidyanidhi in Navadvip. Maybe you know this pastime, yeah? So one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he started saying out of nowhere, and no one knew who this personality was, but he was saying Pundarik Bap. Bap is like an affectionate word in Bengali that means father. Right? So he's saying like Pundarik Bap, Kotai to me. Where are you? And they were wondering who is this person? And then they thought, well, Pundarika is the name of the Lord. He must be calling out in separation of the Lord. But then he was saying, Vidyanidhi, Vidyanidhi. We're saying, okay, this must be someone else. Who is this Pundarika Vidyanidhi? So they asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who he was calling for. And he explained that my dear devotee has appeared in Chattagram, and I really desire to see him. So my desire is that you bring him somehow or other here to Navadvip, that I can have his darshan. And so the devotees then somehow or other, they were able to bring him, and it was also by the, within the heart of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he understood the desire of the Lord, and he made arrangements to come with his entourage to Navadvip. And he also had a home there. He had quite an opulent house, a palace, a mansion. And so Pundarik Vidyanidhi was not just any Vaishnava, but he was a very opulent Vaishnava. He had great material wealth and also great beauty. He had very slick hairstyle, and it was all, spick and span, nice, the most opulent clothing, probably the most fine silks and such. And so he came to Navadvip, unknown to most of the Vaishnav community, and with this secret desire to meet his master, Lord Chaitanya. But some devotees, they did already have some relationship with Pundarik Vidyanidhi. One of them was Mukunda, who was a dear friend of Lord Chaitanya since childhood. So he knew of Pundarik Vidyanidhi's arrival in Navadvip. And so one day he came to Gadadhar Pandit, who was also his dear friend, and he said, "Gadadhar, would you like to meet a real Vaishnava?" And so Gadadhar Pandit got very excited, and he said, "Yes, let us go immediately." So they departed, and then they arrived at Pundarik Vidyanidhi's house. And then when they came in, Mukunda introduced them, Gadadhar Pandit, to Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And at that time, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was sitting on this very lavish couch, like a nice red couch with brass arms, and he was chewing pan with a very nice, fancy pan container. And he had a pure white silk bed, silk bed sheets and soft pillows and all of this. So his whole house was just like completely opulent. And so, although Gadadhar Pandit was excited to meet this great Vaishnav, but he was coming from a background of renunciation. He was a very detached devotee, and externally he lived very simply, very humbly. So, this is also a lesson for us that sometimes we think that devotees practicing Krishna consciousness should look like us. They should externally have a similar situation to us, but Vaishnavism doesn't have anything to do with the externals. And when devotees are very advanced, then externally they may appear not to, behave according to normal convention. There are many examples of that. So in this case, here is a pure devotee who is living apparently the life of a materialist. Right? So Gadadhar Pandit, when he saw this, in his heart he was a little conflicted. And he developed a kind of, we can say, offensive attitude, that he was judging Pundarik Vidyanidhi. That if you're such a devotee, why are you living like this? Enjoying sense gratification like a karmi. And then Mukunda, kind of reading the face of Gadadhar Pandit, understanding his what was going on in his mind, he began to sing some bhajans. Mukunda is known as one of the greatest kirtaniyas in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sangha. So he started to sing some verses, and he sung this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Aho bakiyam stanakala kutam. So we'll read the translation again. That, alas, how shall I take shelter of one more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, Putana, although she was unfaithful and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. When he sung this verse in a very beautiful melody, as he does, Pundarik Vidyanidhi immediately erupted with all of the sattvika bhavas. So there are 8 sattvika bhavas, which are involuntary bodily symptoms as a result of internal change of heart. So when the heart is overflooded with bhava, it's called sattva. And the bhava, or the symptoms of bhav that erupt in the body from that are called sattvika bhavas. So there are 8 of them. hair standing on end, yeah, a change of color, trembling, sweating, and tears, and so on. These are sattvika bhavas. So all of these asta sattvika bhavas appeared in the person of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And his trembling was so great that he actually collapsed, and all of the opulent furniture in his house, like there was not a single piece of furniture that was left undestroyed. He just like was going around the room and smashed the couch, and because he was just like falling over in ecstasy, so he broke all of his stuff. His pan container went scattered across the floor. Even his clothes, his opulent silk clothes, were torn, and he was unbothered by this. Yeah, so and finally he was able to. After some time, he fainted. When he came to consciousness, then and he came back to a normal state of mind. Gadadhar Pandit, he was amazed. He was speechless, and he realized actually the offense that he had committed in his heart. That actually this is a great Vaishnava, and I was judging him based on externals. But he has no attachment for these material things. That's clear. He's destroyed everything that he owns. And his heart is so full of love that at the recitation of a few verses of Bhagavatam, his heart was overwhelmed. So then he came to Mukunda and he explained, his feeling. And he said, I've created a great offense at the feet of this Vaishnava. And I think there's only one way that I can rectify this offense. I don't yet have a Diksha Guru. So I would like to take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi and accept him as my spiritual master and serve his lotus feet. And in this way, he saw it as this is an appropriate way to rectify his offensive mentality. And so he did end up accepting him as his spiritual master. So this is just to illustrate that how these pure devotees feel when they hear such pastimes. Maybe in us there's not much of a reaction. We think, wow, that's really cool that Putana attained prema by trying to kill Krishna. So these devotees, when they hear such things, it just like, it's a cause of great ecstasy, because we have hope. Yeah, he's so merciful that I too can attain perfection if such a person as Putana or Jagai and Madhai. Yeah, this is like the Jagai and Madhai of Krishna Lila, right? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave similar destination, like he gave prema to Jagai and Madhai, who tried to attack them, and indeed caused Nityananda Prabhu to bleed by throwing a potsherd at his head. So this quality of Krishna is very exceptional. And that's what we can learn really from this pastime and this series of verses. So I'll end here. I went a little long maybe, but... Any comments or questions? Yes?
I have a question. You talked about Kripa Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas, right? One might also think that it is unfair to the Sadhana Siddhas because they actually are hankering for that love or a position to serve Krishna. But someone who doesn't want it, they're granted that. So doesn't it seem a bit unfair to them?
Well, that's certainly one perspective. Ultimately, we have to realize that not even our sadhana is the cause of us getting the mercy of the Lord. That mercy is by definition causeless. We say all the time, causeless mercy. So what we're doing in sadhana bhakti is we are trying to demonstrate to the Lord by our actions that we have a desire to get that mercy. But really to progress in the path of Krishna consciousness, we have to give up this idea that we are the controller even of the process of bhakti. Like, we're not the controller and enjoyer of bhakti. She's independent like Krishna because she is Krishna's Swarup Shakti. She's non-different from Krishna. So as Krishna is independent, she's also independent. So on the path of devotional service, you go through these stages like anartha nivritti to overcome our anarthas, all our material attachments and material desires and so on. So it's actually not an ascending process. It's not that by my sadhana and by my personal endeavor that I'm going to overcome my anarthas. The way that you pass through anartha nivritti and get to nishta and then ruchi and eventually bhava and prema is when you accept that actually I am completely helpless and there's nothing I can do to overcome any of my material attachments. It's only by the causeless mercy of the Lord that will happen. And so it's described that it's not like a hill or a mountain that you ascend and you conquer and then you come down the other side to ruchi and fall into love. It's actually like you have a mountain of anarthas and you don't conquer it. You actually, by humility, by bowing down, you go underneath. You pass under. That's by the mercy of the Lord, that He's removing these anarthas from our heart by His desire. So we can endeavor in the meantime, we can try our best to show the Lord that we're sincere and that we're trying our best, but actually we're completely helpless in this situation. Nothing we can do. So in both cases, the sadhana siddha and the kripa siddha, actually it's only kripa. The only difference is that the kripa siddha externally doesn't show any effort. The effort is only coming from the Lord's side. In our case, externally we're showing effort, but just as in the case of Damodar Leela, in Kartik, as we were just hearing, probably quite a bit, that there's the two fingers, one is our endeavor and the other is the mercy of the Lord. So Yashoda was endeavoring to bind Krishna. She had a desire, but without the Lord's mercy, she could not do it. So the actual factor in both cases is only the causeless mercy of the Lord. So it's completely fair because the sadhana siddha doesn't actually deserve it any more than the kripa siddha. Who deserves the mercy of the Lord more than someone else? Yeah, no one deserves. Mercy means you don't deserve it. That's the definition of mercy, right? So ultimately, the sadhaka has to have this mentality that it's by my own foolishness that I turned away from Krishna, and I don't deserve actually Krishna's mercy because I'm the one who turned away from Him. It's not that Krishna threw us in this world and said, good luck. He's not a malevolent God. We see how merciful He is. So it's not Him that put us here. It's not His fault. And as long as we blame the Lord for our situation, we'll never be able to have the proper attitude, to pray in sincerity for the Lord's mercy. So to do sadhana properly, you have to give up the idea of I'm the controller of the path of bhakti, and really what makes the process work is not your external motions, your actions. It's actually the intention behind them. Yeah? So that can help us to maybe get the attention of the Lord, and if He desires, then He will give His mercy. But it's up to Him. Yeah. So I hope that answers. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just to add, is there any other example of kripa siddha?
Let's see if I can think of something on the spot. Jagai and Madai, we gave that example. Yeah. Maybe right now my mind is blank, but I can think later of some examples and share with you. But these maybe suffice for now. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gives some examples there as well. Like he gives Shastric references for all of his points, so you can consult also there. He'll give some example. But yeah, right now I'm drawing a blank. Okay? We're happy. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, Lord Krishna's mercy ki.